Gaming news today is all about big updates. First, Black Myth Wukong dropped an update for their game. It was basically a game-sized update to improve performance on console. Now, given that was my biggest gripe about the game on my PS5 and my PS5 Pro, I checked it out. I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. You're probably not going to like what I have to say. Second, the latest update on the PS6 is that it is coming in 2027, but my view and prediction is a bit different on timing. It also includes the rumored PlayStation handheld. I have it on pretty good authority that people are getting this timeline a little bit wrong, and I'm going to explain why I think that. Third, Arc Raiders has outlined how they are going to be handling wiping player progress. It seems like a good choice from what I can tell. There's unique challenges that faces games like this. How do you get people to keep coming back? How do you sort of reset them without frustrating them? We're going to look at how they're going to handle this, and we'll kind of debate whether or not it's a good solution. Now, if you're watching this later, remember to hit that like button. Make sure you have the notification bell checked. A lot of you guys are like, hey, I haven't been seeing your stuff. Sometimes you got to like unsubscribe and resubscribe. YouTube's been doing some funky stuff, and sometimes it resets all your stuff, so you need to reset it as well. If you want to support me directly, you can click join. Pick the $6 tier. That will get you into all my extra content. That is how I do this full time. We just came from morning coffee, and we end the day with Green Room, and you can't come to those segments if you are not a member, so consider supporting directly. That is how I'm able to do this. If you can't support directly, try to be here as often as you can. Hit the like button. Make sure you're lurking. And good morning, and good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. We like to kind of get into the meat of the show quicker now, instead of making you guys wait. And I already have some people to thank. You guys are already sort of blowing the door off here, and we're going to need it because we're a little bit behind again this week on that weekly goal. I think we're going to play Dead Take this week, a spooky game where you gotta like pick things and stuff. My wife and I love those games on Friday night for you because it's October, and a 5 bomb comes in. Han shot first, and so did you. We have a 5 bomb coming in for Team YouTube here, and that'll take us to 67, and then MTO renews their Member Plus and gets us to 68. We don't have our first 100 of the week yet, but we'll get there hopefully very shortly. And a 10-month renewal from Wired Rope. He says, guys, it's a new month. Check your primes. That is true if you're paying for Amazon Prime. Always remember to double check your primes over there on the purple platform. And if you're watching on YouTube, go through that ritual. Get in here, hit like, get to lurking, or get to chatting. Either way, it supports what we do on this platform. That is one of the ways that we're able to do this full time, is you guys just consistently come in every day, and you bring the support. You guys have been chatting and bringing the vibes, and bringing the lurk as well. We had a lot of lurkers the last couple of days, just folks just hanging out and enjoying the show. Wired Rope with 32 months and a Member Plus. Thank you so much, Wired Rope. Double dipping, supporting on both platforms. Luke Vader comes in and says, everybody's proud of you for staying strong. Well, thank you so much for 15 months, Luke. If you guys are on the gifted member, like when you go to renew and it says gifted, consider bumping that up to Member Plus. We need about 100 folks to do that. We're trying to get to 600 people at Member Plus. That is a huge help to what I do. 2027 feels way too early, kind of frustrating if true. I think folks are getting the timeline wrong. I'm going to talk about why I think they're getting the timeline wrong, and I think this is a very, very common thing that we've seen. I also think that we saw, Nintendo, they had production started and ready to go, and all signs pointed to Switch 2 releasing in 2024, and then we found out internally that they pushed it because they were like, no, we want to be able to meet demand, and so they pushed it. I think something very similar is probably going to happen with the PlayStation. I don't necessarily think that the timeline is... let's just say it this way. The most concrete part of what we've heard is the stuff that's like schematics and like the size of stuff and the specs of stuff, right? Because that stuff has to be ordered and sort of planned for, pretty far in advance. The least concrete part of these types of leaks is the release window. We've been here so many times. We know that release windows are the least concrete part of anything like this. So I don't think we see a PlayStation 6 in 2027. I don't think so. I think that's too early. I've been saying for a very long time, my gut was they were going to stretch a little bit. There's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot of elements, I think, to this that point to a longer gen this gen. There's things that they have said. There's things that they have done. There's things that we've noticed. Now, the thing that I know people are going to bring up is they're going to be like, well, what about the new Xbox? Like, aren't they going to want to be out at the same time? I don't feel like either company feels that need anymore. I don't feel like they're going to be going head-to-head with hardware anymore. They're going to have very different approaches. From what we're hearing, Microsoft's approach is going to be more of a hybrid PC. It's going to be more performant, but then it's also going to be more expensive. That's going to put them in a different class of technology, and also just a different, I think, audience. I think the target audience is going to be very different. And so I don't think there's going to be this need. I don't think either company is going to feel that need. We have to be out at the same time. We got to go head to head like they have done traditionally. What's good, feed? I see you in the chat over here on YouTube. Almost the first 100 likes really quickly, guys. You guys are crushing it. We've only been live for about 5 minutes. Thank you so much for being here. I paused the thing that nobody likes. Nobody likes to have those things disrupt us, so I put a pause on those. So be sure that you're hitting the like button. Show that appreciation for that. Appreciate everybody being here this morning and adding to the conversation. There's a lot to talk about. PlayStation 6, Arc Raiders, Black Myth Wukong. We're kind of talking PlayStation 6 right now. Hybrid console only for $1,500. Yeah, I mean, the price point is obviously up for debate, and it could land anywhere. But the speculation is that whatever Xbox comes with is going to be on the higher end of price, which I think is fine if it does what we're hearing. I think it'll be completely justified. I don't think it'll be overpriced. I think it'll be completely justifiable to say this is basically a PC console hybrid for your living room. I think that's going to be $1,000 minimum. And if that's where it lands, somewhere there, maybe $1,200 or something like that, I think that target audience is going to say, yeah, that's fine. That's reasonable. Jalen, thank you so much for coming in with a member plus and bumping the line to 71. Thank you so much. We are a little bit of a slower start this week, but that's okay. It's spooky themed October, and those Friday nights we'll play a spooky game for you guys, my wife and I. There won't be any market for it, says Eugene. You see Astrocross's video about Arc Raiders and the EA app or something? No, I've not seen that video by Cross. As far as there not being a market for it, Eugene, this is my theory on what's going on with that, is that PlayStation and Nintendo's kind of taking their same approach. They're just taking another ride on the merry-go-round. Switch 1 did so well, right? I had to unsub and resub so the chat bar would come up. That's really weird. I'm telling you, the website's been acting really funky. We've been having some really weird results, and I had a guy leave a comment. He's like, so glad to see you back. And I'm like, I didn't go anywhere. I probably wasn't showing up on his app or his YouTube homepage, would be my guess. Anyways, Nintendo seems to be saying, let's take another ride on the merry-go-round. Let's just do this again. Switch 1 did so well. Let's do Switch 2. PlayStation's taking a very different approach. They're saying, okay, well, let's do ports to PC 18 months later or so, sometimes 2 years or more later, trying to coax people over with our property to consider buying the hardware. They're getting a new user acquisition of 25 to 30%, which is pretty good. Out of all of the PlayStation 5 sold, a fourth or a third of those people are new, which is great. That's good results. But that also means you have a lot of people that are still hanging out on PS4, and they're probably hoping that next year GTA 6 helps with that. They were probably hoping that GTA 6 would help with that this year, but it got delayed. And then eventually Call of Duty will do the same thing. Call of Duty will leave PS4 behind, and when that happens, that'll help a lot of people to move because they're not going to be, they're not going to want to get left behind. Okay, so if PlayStation's doing one other thing that I think is very, very early, and we're going to see if it yields the results they're hoping for, and that is the China Hero Project, India Hero, and the MENA Hero Project. Can they break into markets where they don't really have a foothold, they don't really have a presence? China Hero Project's not off to a great start because of Lost Soul Aside was rocky. It didn't do very well commercially. It didn't have much of a presence on PC at all, which is what they were probably hoping to see. They were probably hoping to see that because, PC is the bigger portion in China and console doesn't really have a footprint there. So PlayStation's, approach is pretty multifaceted. Xbox seems to be saying that's just not our path anymore. Our path is a cascade of access points and publishing. So they're really stressing, a TV, a smartphone, an iPhone, a tablet or an Asus ROG. And then there's this alleged PC hybrid. I really don't think their goal with this PC hybrid is to like rival the PlayStation. Like a guy left a comment this morning on my channel and he said, "Oh, they're so slick." It was so Xbox wait until. And I was like, really? People are still doing this? I don't, even the most ardent bleed green guys seem to know that that's just not happening. There's no counterattack, right? My boys won their soccer final. So thinking about a counterattack, right? There are people that think that there's some counterattack from Xbox that like, oh no, they're going to come back. They're going to answer back. And I just don't think that's the goal. I don't think PlayStation sees that either. I don't think PlayStation is like basing their timeline off of, you know, oh, well, if Xbox releases this device, we need to make sure and have our device out as well. I just don't think that pressure is there. I don't think that impetus is there. I think they're on very different paths. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. If you're a consumer that feels the Switch 2 answers things for you, maybe a future PlayStation 6 answers things for you, maybe Xbox's PC hybrid is an answer for you, maybe a handheld is, maybe building your own PC, whatever. I think we're going to have a lot of options, which is never a bad thing, but I don't see any of these devices going head-to-head anymore. I don't. Now, some people would say this is bad. They would say, well, we're headed towards no competition, and that's bad. You know, the console, I've already seen people doing that with the fear-mongering. They're like, the console is going to be $1,000, right? Xbox is doing a bang-up job getting close to that number as it is, okay? So the argument that, like, oh, lack of competition is going to make that happen, there are a million other factors going into the pricing of technology and electronics right now, and it doesn't seem to be like lack of competition. The other thing that I think people are ignoring is when you have three very different approaches to the market, that actually brings a different version of competition. So if you look at the Nintendo Switch 2 at its price point, and you look at the current consoles and their price point, and then you look at PCs, and then you look at handhelds, I don't think there is a single piece of train track being laid to take us into some new frontier where a brand new console is $1,000. I just don't think so. I think people are underestimating what that would look like and what that would do to the demand. Because if you go into the store and you're seeing like a PC hybrid for $1,000, or you're seeing PCs for $1,200 or $1,500, and then PlayStation's in that hemisphere, I mean it. I think optics on that, perception and receptibility of that would be terrible. I think people would be like, that's astronomical for a console. So I actually think the all three companies being in the gaming space in different ways will still serve as a form of competition, because you're going to have the Switch 2 at $450. Allegedly, we're going to have this PC hybrid at around $1,000. And I think the PlayStation is going to be somewhere in the middle. So you've got your $450, you've got your $1,000. You know, PlayStation's going to be somewhere in the middle at like $600 or so, which is basically where we are right now. I don't know why there's this thought that like, oh yeah, the PlayStation 6 is going to be $1,000. There's no more competition anymore, and this is terrible. And it's like, first and foremost, whose fault is that? Really? Like, did the consumers do that? I don't think they did. Consumers responded to value proposition. Consumers responded to games. Consumers responded to hardware. Consumers responded to your marketing and your promises and your delivery, right? If it's not the consumer's fault if something leaves the market or if something changes in the market. The consumers weren't supposed to support something just for the sake of supporting it. Making the best games is the front line for competition, and nobody is walking those back. Right, and I don't know if that's even really a battle anymore. I think that's a mutually beneficial relationship for most of these companies. Most of these companies are going to look at a platform like Steam or Xbox or PlayStation and Nintendo, and they're like, yeah, we benefit from your existence because we're selling games. You know, I don't think there's this head-to-head competition in that department anymore either. Trill with 40 months in a VIP, people acting like there was competition for the past 10 years. Bumps the line to 72. Thank you so much, Trill. Yeah, that too. I see it being $1,000 only because the Pro is $800, and by the time the PS6 is out, that's 4+ years after launch. Yeah, but there's been internal rumblings about that, and a base level model can't be that high. Like the Pro is priced as an upgrade model, as a niche sort of, luxury item within luxury items, right? I don't think the Pro determines the price of the PS6. I don't think that it does. Because the PS5 Pro can be priced at a threshold that is endured by enthusiasts and early adopters, right? The PS5 Pro is not meant to be your base model with wide adoption. When you do a base model with wide adoption, you're typically going to be subsidizing that in some way. You're going to be taking a loss on it, right? They didn't do that with the Pro, because that wasn't the PS5 Pro's purpose. The PS5 Pro's purpose was not to be a widely adopted base level model. It was a mid-gen upgrade, so it's priced accordingly. It's priced accordingly. Production cost of Pro would be higher because less units are built. That's another factor that's very good to make here. Madden Mills is making a great point. If you're making a ton of PS6s and you made a fraction of that with PS5 Pros, your production cost of the Pro is going to be higher because you're making that model in smaller quantities. You'd be making far more PS6s, especially since we're hearing they're going to go with the detachable disk drive again, meaning you're going to have the unified SKU to keep production costs down. Won't the PS6 have better specs than the Pro in theory and cost more to near the same? No, I think we've just kind of dismantled that idea that the PS6 could actually be spec'd higher and not be as expensive for them to produce it, because your production lines can be bigger, more broad, because you have a unified SKU, and that can drive your production costs down due to quantity of the items purchased or any kind of contract they have with AMD, whatever the case may be. That can make it cheaper for them to make a PS6 than a Pro. Also, they will potentially willingly lose money on a PlayStation 6 because it's a base model that needs broad adoption. They will not do that with a model like the PS5 Pro. That's another problem with comparing the two, is that, and I made the same mistake. I thought the same thing that Chris thought. I thought, dude, the Pro is so expensive as is. They're easily going to be having a PS6 at a high dollar amount. I think people rather well argued. They argued rather well. They kind of argued me out of that position. They were like, no. You need mass market adoption. You're going to be making more of them. You need to sell more of them. They're going to be willing to lose money on them. They will not price the PS6 in relation to the PS5 Pro. If the PS6 is chiplet based and the chiplets are shared with desktop graphics, then the PS6 can be much cheaper. Yeah, there can be elements that make it cheaper. How much was the PS4 Pro? I don't remember. Was it like $450? I'm trying to remember. How much was the PS4 Pro at launch? $400? This is saying $400. Google AI is saying it's $400 in 2016. Yeah, $400. How much was the PS5 at launch? The disk drive model was $500 and the digital version was $400. There you go. The base level model of the PS5 with no disk drive was the same price as the PS4 Pro. So arguably, you could have a similar situation. Now, they've raised the price of the Pro. I still don't know if your base model would come out at $700. I think the base model would come out at $600. $550, maybe $600. I don't know. I got my head stuck on $1K. I'd like to be lower as getting it for my sister when it comes out. The reason I don't think it would be $1K, Chris, is there's a $1,000 handheld right now, and you're paying for the fact that they didn't make a ton of them. They make less of them. Demand for the product is lower. That tends to drive, your cost up a bit, right? You're going to sell less items. You're going to try and make more per item. So it's $1,000 per. So, handhelds right now are $1,000 per, and PCs, look at PCs in the $1,000 price range, and I think you can argue yourself out of what you're thinking. Like, just do some analysis of the market right now and just look at what technology is costing. $1,000 Asus ROG Ally X, $1,000 pre-made PCs. Why on earth would a PS6 be $1,000? Do you see what I'm saying? Because you got to think about this. This is another thing that people have said about consoles traditionally, and it's generally true, that when you build a console, The hardware is pretty much outdated the minute it hits the shelves because they had to start working on the console, constructing the console, picking the parts for the console, years before it's on the shelves, right? That would mean that when it comes time to sell it, they're not going to have this business impetus or even justification to be like, oh no, yeah, this is $1,000 console if it's already behind, a $1,200 PC. You can go to the store and buy a $1,200 PC. You're going to look at this thing and be like, well, wait, why is this thing $1,000? So again, I think within the market, if you look at the $1,000 electronics, $1,000 gaming units, a PS6 being at $1,000 just doesn't make any sense. It wouldn't fit within the pricing structure of all of the places that they're going to be sitting. You got a $450 Switch 2, a $1,000 PC, and then a $1,000 PS6. Like the PS6 would want to land, I would think in the 600 mark. You think 800 maxes, Dave? 800 just seems way too high. I think it's going to be 600 to 650. I agree with Odin Arrow. I think it's going to be around the 600. They might even do a 550 digital model and a 600 disk drive model. They might even try and keep at least one of them in the 500 range. My PC's 1.8. It's a year old. I got a Steam Deck out. Out every weekend and can't play games until 9. Right, so you're familiar with the pricing of things right now. I think it would be very strange for a PS6 to strut into the market in 2 or 3 years, and to be priced at the level of a PC, like a pre-made PC. I just don't think that they would do that. I don't think their target audience would be not receptive to that. I think they know that. I think they know that. Okay, so look at the dialogue around the latest price increase from PlayStation, okay? Look at the dialogue around it from their earnings call. What do they say? They were trying to avoid it. They had shored up stock in the United States to delay the price increase because of the tariffs. They were considering moving production to America. A Japanese company said to their shareholders that they were considering moving production to America. Okay? You don't really move production here. We're not the best place for it. Our cost of living is high. Expected wages is high. That makes doing production here difficult because it makes it expensive. Okay, you're going to do production you're going to do production in countries where cost of living is low, and you're going to do production in places where wage expectations are low. Okay, yeah, these things aren't even produced in Japan. They're producing them in places where cost of living and expected wages are low because it keeps costs down. Now, keep in mind everything I just said, okay? If PlayStation is internally like, we're doing everything we can to avoid raising the price of the PS5 and the PS5 Pro, which those went up by $50. So that was a $700 and a $450 price range, like $450 for the digital PS5 and a $700 Pro. That was your price range, $450 to $700. And they were actively doing everything they could to avoid the price increase. Now, the question you have to ask is why? Why would they do that? I thought all these companies were super greedy and just wanted more money. Why would they be actively in an earnings call talking about, we have made as many moves as we can to avoid increasing the price of this device? Do you want to know why? Because they know what the market will do in response to certain pricing thresholds. It will slow your demand. It will slow your sales. They know that. Now, they also know the optics on a price increase is a little bit different than your launch price. That would be fair pushback. If somebody was arguing against me, they would say, well, Lono, the optics of a price increase are far more negative than just being like, here's the device, here's the price. I actually think there's two threads to this cord. I think that is one thread, that seeing a price increase is a big negative. But I also think they are very cognizant to the fact that certain pricing thresholds are just a deal breaker for people. They're like, that's too expensive for a console. Given everything I just said, that would mean internally, PlayStation is going to do everything they can to keep the price of the PlayStation 6 within a reasonable space. These people that are fear-mongering, and they're like, well, if there's no competition, PlayStation's going to do whatever the frick they want. Really? How did they respond to the Xbox Series X and S selling terrible every year this gen? Just down. How did PlayStation respond to that? How did PlayStation respond to Xbox raising their hardware prices? How did PlayStation respond to Xbox announcing $80 games? What do? Nothing. They didn't do anything. They didn't raise the prices to $80. Where are the $80 games, by the way? All the fear-mongering that people are doing. Yep, no competition. PlayStation's going to be charging you $100 a game and $1,000 for the console. What's really interesting is that Xbox was the one to do it first. What are you so worried about PlayStation for? I don't understand. Yeah, this is from the Yote Collector's Edition. I didn't even know that they give you this. The Yote 6. They give you the cloth. My daughter found it underneath a thing in the box. So this idea, this fear-mongering that, like, yeah, that's what PlayStation's going to do. You can analyze PlayStation's behavior just this year, and you can see they are very aware that you can't just raise prices and go to pricing thresholds because it'll hurt your sales. It'll hurt demand for your product. It will. They're very aware of that. I don't think that's going to evaporate into thin air all of a sudden. If there was ever a time for PlayStation to suddenly change their tune because they're like, yeah, we don't really have any competition, it would be this year. This would be the year to do it. They're not. They're not doing it. They held off on the price increase as long as they could, and then they raised it by $50. That's not even exorbitant. The fear-mongering has no legs. There's no ground. It's all speculation. Keep in mind, the people fear-mongering about like a $1,000 PlayStation 6, the people fear-mongering about $100 video games, look at their track record and their predictions about Xbox. And then maybe there's no real reason to trust any of their predictions about what PlayStation will do, okay? They're talking about hitting a home run and they've done nothing but strike out. I wouldn't take their predictions. They're not worth anything, okay? They're not. These are the people that were saying all these sorts of things about Xbox, and now their entire tune has changed. That's the people driving this narrative that, like, yeah, there's going to be no competition and the PlayStation 6 is going to be $1,000 and they're going to charge you, $100 for a game. And it's like, this year, they've done everything they can to avoid raising prices from tariffs, mind you. They weren't discussing, this is another thing, this is another really important point I want to make. PlayStation was not discussing raising prices in response to Xbox in their earnings call. They weren't like, well, they did it. Look what they did. $80 games. Look what they did. They raised the price of their hardware. What were they talking about? When it came to raising the price of the PlayStation, what were they talking about in their earnings call? What were they discussing? They were discussing the tariffs. You have to see how important that is. They weren't discussing Xbox. They weren't like, oh, well, they did it, we can do it. Oh, well, they've basically exited this space. We can really do whatever we want now. No, they were only discussing a price increase because of tariffs. They were calculating the amount they were going to lose, the millions of yen they were going to lose because of this. I think that's another insight into how this will not have an effect on what they do. It won't. This seemingly, this shift in strategy at Xbox, I don't think is going to yield some horrible future where the PlayStation 6 is $1,000 and games are $100. Nintendo almost delayed the launch because of the tariffs that people forget. Yeah, Nintendo did all sorts of stuff to try to avoid it. They literally moved production to a where'd they move production? They moved production somewhere, and they moved it there because they were trying to avoid the tariffs. Yeah, they were doing everything they could as well. Oh, my monitor's really bright. I was playing Wukong in here. Yeah, it was Vietnam. Yeah. Yeah, Nintendo, I mean, everybody was trying to navigate around these things. Zubair says it'll have an effect, but it'll be $50 more, not $400 more. And at that point, it's really hard to quantify where that $50 price increase comes from, right? At that level, it's hard to even quantify it. It's like, okay, is it because of what Xbox is doing, or is it because of, operational fees? Let's see. How do I do this? Is this how I do it? No. No, yeah, it wasn't Taiwan, it was Vietnam. Why would Sony F themselves just because Xbox is dead? PlayStation wants gamers buying PlayStation. I mean, I don't think Xbox is dead, but the argument that, like, everything's going to get really, really bad now because, you know, there's this... They view it as like, well, you know, congratulations, there's no competition now and everything's going to get terrible. And to me, I've always been a little confused by that because I don't see any evidence of that being the case. I don't see any evidence of that being the response, if that makes sense. Like, if that were going to be the response, if the response were going to be to just take total advantage of where the market is right now, I feel like PlayStation would have already made really, really aggressive moves, and they simply haven't. When they had the opportunity this year to justify a price increase, they tried to avoid it. They made significant moves to not do it, and then they only did it by $50. That's not them being kind, by the way. That's not PlayStation being pro-consumer. That's PlayStation being pro-profit. That's why being pro-profit is nuanced and not, it's complicated. It's not as simple as being like, well, we can make more money, just go ahead and raise the price. We don't have any competition anymore, so PlayStations are now $700, $800. You know, the Pro is $1,000, right? They had a perfectly legitimate time to justify a price increase, and they didn't do it. They waited, and then they're like, okay, now we'll do it, and it's only $50. And they're still not doing $80 games. Ghost of Yote, $70. Now, everything I just said it has nothing to do with them being pro-consumer. Everything I just said about PlayStation is PlayStation being pro-profit. It's them being pro-profit. They understand that this relationship with the public is delicate. And if you go too high on the price of something, you're going to end up with either broken trust or damaged demand. You're either going to end up with broken trust or damaged demand, like not enough demand for your product, because people are going to say, yeah, that's ridiculous. That's way too expensive. They took 200 gig from the hard drive and shrunk the heatsink again. They need to build a super slim. Yeah, I think that was another area where they were trying to avoid price increase. They're trying to lower production costs. They're actively trying to attack this from multiple fronts. Xbox was never legitimate competition. Xbox is like a trust fund kid. They only survive because other divisions in Microsoft subsidize them. I think to argue that Microsoft and Xbox didn't push PlayStation to be competitive, I don't think that's a correct position. I don't agree with that. I think the existence of Xbox, and especially coming out of the 360 era into the Xbox One era, you can see what that did. PlayStation really pushed. PlayStation really learned some lessons. A lot of what they've done with targeting developers and Mark Cerny's philosophy and approach to hardware, a lot of that has been driven by the fact that Xbox is in the market. So to pretend that it hasn't helped or hasn't pushed PlayStation to be innovative, I don't agree with that. I also don't agree, though, with the other extreme position, which is, well, if Xbox basically leans into being a publisher and isn't really competing in the traditional console space, you know, PlayStation is just going to rest on their laurels, be lazy, and overcharge for everything. I think that's another extreme position that has zero founding in logic, reason, or anything observational about technology. That's not what makes these companies' share value go up. That's not what makes, you know, Sony valuable to their shareholders and to the market. They're always going to be needing to improve their value and their standing. Yeah, the new Pokemon game's getting like an 81. That's probably good considering, you know, people that might have been worried about problems and performance issues. 81 probably means it's a solid game. You know, without any major problems. It's not going to disrupt like the game of the year conversation, but that, you know, that's a solid result, I would say. If you guys haven't hit the subscribe button yet, consider hitting subscribe on YouTube. It's free to subscribe. It lets you talk in my chat. Also consider hitting the like button. Try to get us to 200 likes really, really quickly if you haven't already. We're only about 30 minutes into the show. I said they weren't competition. I never said they didn't set an excellent example of what not to do. Well, it's more than that, though, because PlayStation had their own era of time where their console was difficult to develop for, right? It dropped from 86 to 81 the last 15 minutes. It typically is always going to drop. The first round of reviews hit, and you can never really trust that. You always got to wait. You got to let that first hour kind of finish. So, yeah, the timing of the PlayStation 6, the PS6 release date, to me is a part of this conversation. Because I do think there are going to be people that think, oh, well, you better launch at the same time because, you got to be in the market at the same time as the Xbox. I don't think that that's true. I don't think that they're going to feel the need to do that. I don't think at this point in time PlayStation is going to do anything in response to Xbox. I also think Xbox is going to take a similar attitude. They're not going to do anything in response to PlayStation. So you're seeing the headlines, the next Xbox is going to be stronger than the PS6, okay? That makes perfectly good sense. It's going to be a PC console hybrid from what we've heard. It's going to need to be more capable. It's going to need to be more performant because it's going to be entering into an arena where you're going to want to be able to play games in Steam, games in Epic Game Store or whatever. And it's going to need to be able to do a good level of performance on the vast majority of those games. Now, I don't think that's stemming from a mindset of we need to be better. We need to be better than PlayStation. I don't think Xbox is saying that. I think it is by the nature of the device itself that it will need to be more performant. It will need to be stronger. That, I think, is why. I don't think it's because they're trying to come out swinging. What I'm saying is that if you're a longtime Xbox fan, I'd be very careful thinking that that's what's about to happen. You're going to be signing up for disappointment if you think that's the goal next gen. That they're going to come out swinging and they're going to win the hardware fight, or they're going to try to win the hardware fight. They have signaled rather loudly that they are not interested in that. They're not interested in that fight. It's not their goal anymore. Last Xbox was touted as way more powerful, and we saw how that panned out. I think this is different, Trey. I think this is different. This isn't like it's going to have more teraflops discussion. This is like, oh no, it's going to be a stronger device. It's also going to be more expensive because of that. Like, the speculation is that it's going to be like, a $1,000 to like a $1,200 device. Okay, well, if that's the case, then I don't see a PlayStation being in the hemisphere of that pricing threshold. I just don't. They're like, yeah, that's fine. You can be at that price threshold. We're not doing that. That's not the target audience we're going after. I think the devices themselves are going to be targeting very different audiences. Part of me wonders if the purpose of this device, the PC hybrid, is to assist and help with getting into Asian markets where PC is more prevalent. Can they potentially crack that nut, that market nut of like, can we break into this economy, this consumer base, if we have a device that appeals to them? Think of it from this perspective. PlayStation's looking at the China market and saying, we have no console footprint. Let's use the China Hero project to try to get some traction in one of the largest gaming markets out there. Xbox could be saying the same thing, but saying we're going to have a better chance in that market with something that looks and acts like a PC, because that's what people use in that market. Now, I don't know if they're going to be able to get over that stigma of Xbox, Microsoft, American-owned company. I mean, that could be a challenge culturally for them. But if it does a good job and it's priced well, that might be all it needs. Because, I mean, there was internal documentation. Phil basically said, like, the Asian market is very key to their future. Who's the hybrid competing with? I don't even know if that's the right way to look at it. I don't know if it's competing with anything. I feel like they're trying to use it in a way. They're trying to, if my theory is correct, maybe they're trying to crack in to a market that like they just feel like they can't get into. I've seen your Expedition 33 video. If Arc Raiders gets put on the 2025 list, it'll beat Expedition 33 for Game of the Year. I would bet you $1 million that won't happen. Like, I'm so confident that Arc Raiders stands zero chance at beating Expedition 33, let alone getting a nomination. I would bet you $1 million that never happens. I would be that confident. Like, there's literally no way. There are so many other games that are at the heels of an Expedition 33. Arc Raiders isn't even going to get on the podium. I don't think. If it gets on the podium, I will be shocked. It is a very competitive year. I cannot see it even coming close to Expedition 33. Not even close. Expedition 33 has had like a cultural moment. Arc Raiders is like a popular and anticipated extraction shooter. Like, I've seen some wild takes. That's a wild one. I'll simplify that bet. I'll buy your next game. That never happens. Yeah, it's never going to happen. Yeah. It's no Kirby Air Riders. Up your AI chatbot, man. Oh, update your AI chatbot. That's right. Someone's day drinking. I mean, I'm glad that you're excited about Arc Raiders, but oh, buddy, I don't think that thing's even remotely close to contention for Game of the Year. It could win some of the other categories that it could potentially land in, but not that one. That's like the hardest category to even get a nomination in this year. You know? These same people said Battlefield 6 will be Game of the Year. Creature says, I think they are using it twofold. A transitional bridge to PC and an easy solution to the current user base maintaining their library. Yeah, I mean, if PlayStation's goal with the PlayStation 6 is to sort of maintain their trajectory that they've been building on all these years, and Nintendo's doing the same thing with Switch, Xbox could be saying, it's better for us to just build a user base on PC. It is possible that that's part of the goal here, to move, to offload some of their user base onto what essentially is a PC. Xbox in Japan is basically non-existent, says Street Shadow. If I got into basically Best Buy, BIC Camera, the gaming floor has no Xbox ads and tons of Switch and PlayStation stuff. Right, and I'm just speculating and theorizing, are they attempting to get in there with something that would maybe be more appealing in that market than an Xbox? If something that walks and talks like a PC walks into that environment, does it have a better shot of selling? I don't know. I'm speculating and asking. There may be too much of a stigma around the company in China specifically. I just don't know. But that could be another aspect of the strategy here. Blue Point's hiring for a third-person melee action game. Yeah, a lot of people are like, "Oh, is it Bloodborne? Is it Bloodborne?" Maybe. Miyazaki's got to be involved. If Miyazaki's not involved, that's never. I just don't think that's ever happening. I trust Shuhei Yoshida on that. I think his gut's correct. His gut instinct, his theory was that it's never going to happen unless they can get Miyazaki involved. Xbox can't sell hardware at volume anywhere. Good luck in China. Yeah, it might not even be about volume, though. It might just be about, again, having a cascade of options to engage with their ecosystem, and that's just another place where they could potentially find new customers. That's their big goal, is new customers. Yo, Buckeyes with 6 months over there on Purple, adding to the total. We are off to a slow start this week. And remember to check those renewals because they add up. You guys are always supporting, and make sure and celebrate those renewals because they count. You don't want to leave those idle. Arc Raiders is going to be a great game. I have pre-ordered the deluxe edition, but it's not going to get a nod. But how can you get up to 500 FPS at 4K with the 5090 is crazy good optimization. Yeah, Wired Rope says it's a new month. Check your primes. That's right. Check your primes. What new customers? That's what I'm saying. Just pure speculation. Are they going to try to break into a market where a PC has a better chance than their current console? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out why you would go with the PC hybrid. Like, is there multiple reasons why? Is there multiple layers to the reasoning? You know, it's not difficult to kind of deduce and speculate on what exactly Nintendo's doing, and it's certainly not hard to see what PlayStation's doing. PlayStation just sat down. Mark Cerny just sat down, outlines this plan with AMD. They are signaling, you know, what their trajectory is to the PlayStation 6. That was basically your first trailer for a PS6, is what that sit down with Mark Cerny was. I think he used some phrasing in there that really hints that 2027 is too early for the PS6. Like, if the PS6 release date is going to be 2027, Cerny didn't seem to signal that in that conversation. Now, obviously, you can update things later. We know that PSSR is getting an update next year, so you could certainly release a console in 2 years and then update it, you know, a year later, and then what he says rings true. I don't think that makes an ounce of sense. You would want to wait to have everything ready to go instead of being like, yeah, we're going to launch a base level console that we're going to update in the future. Like I said above, the hybrid is a side hustle. Their customer base is using everything. Their customer base is using everything is an Xbox devices. A side hustle? What would be the purpose of the side hustle? My name isn't real. Thank you for 17 months of memberships. I'd sooner just build a PC rather than buy an Xbox hybrid. I'm an Android struggling to find the upgrade sub. How do I do it? I will type the upgrade command in chat. All right, click that link, and it's easiest to do it in a browser. Sometimes you guys have to actually go to a PC. I know one of the main reasons we don't get lots of upgrades is because YouTube doesn't make it very easy. But if you go to youtube.com/paid memberships, just put an underscore after paid, youtube.com/paid memberships, you should be able to manage your membership and upgrade it. We have been sort of sitting at about 500 people at Member Plus and above, and we've been trying to get that to 600. Eventually, the thing over here in the corner is going to track that. The people who support the channel directly, we've been saying this a lot lately. This channel is fan funded. I mean, this is basically, there are people who are very successful and they do everything on Patreon, right? That's just how they do it. They're fan funded on Patreon. We're basically doing that model on YouTube. I don't want to have to like send you somewhere else. Everything's right here. Extra content, extra shows, all right here. And then there is there's the Discord as well for all the supporters. I should have written that as everything is an Xbox devices. Oh, in quotes. To make money off people who want to pay $1,000 for an Xbox device. The Ally X proves they exist. I always wonder about that, Zoob. Like, with the, and again, I think this is going to come up a lot in the PlayStation 6 as well as the PlayStation handheld, like the timing of the release. That's going to consistently come up. Like, well, are they trying to compete with that ROG Ally X or with this hybrid? And I just don't know. I'm really curious about the PlayStation handheld and like what it's even going to cost. I do want the Xbox handheld. For sure, there are people that want it. The quantity of people that want it versus the cost to build, market, and ship it, though, I think is the real question. And then I obviously am curious about, within the PS6 release date, with the PlayStation 6 release window as a topic, there's a PlayStation handheld that was, I think, it was erroneously referred to as a PS6 handheld. It's not going to be a PS6 handheld. It's going to be a PS5, basically. And it comes first, by the way. The handheld's coming first before PS6. I don't think the handheld's next year, by the way. I think the handheld's 2027, and I think the PS6 is 2028. That's what I think. I'm really curious how they're going to price the PlayStation handheld, because where it's going to land in the grand scheme of things is like it can't be $1,000. Yeah, I have a PlayStation Portal. That's the only handheld. Well, I have Switch 2s. You know, me and my two kiddos, we all have Switch 2s, but we don't even use those handheld. I mean, my kids like to use them handheld in the car on trips, but that's rare. That's like twice a year maybe. So they're usually used in their dock. How's the Portal doing? It's been a very successful accessory, but it's not a handheld. The Portal is not a handheld. It is an accessory to the PlayStation. It's a remote play device. Do you know what I mean? Like, and it's, like $200? It's basically the cost of an Elite controller. Like, it's... The Portal is great if it solves problems for you. If it's not going to solve any problems for you, then it's not worth it. But if it's going to allow you to, play at work on Wi-Fi, or, maybe your commute somehow has Wi-Fi and you're able to play remotely, or they've got a lot of games on the cloud now that it can just play like right over the internet. You don't even have to have a PlayStation. The Portal is great for that, but it's not a handheld. You know what I mean? You talking BS? Who's talking BS? Who are you talking to? Oh, Trey. What is Trey saying? The PS6 will be at least $900 minimum? Oh, I don't think so. No. But this is my argument about price, Trey. I outlined this earlier. You weren't here, so I'm gonna walk through it again. This year, I think, made it very clear that they are very cognizant and sensitive to overpricing something. They had an opportunity to do $80 games, haven't done it. They had an opportunity to raise the price of the PlayStation 5, and they waited. They waited until they sold through all of their stock. They shored up stock in the U.S. to try to avoid the tariffs. And then they only raised it by $50. Okay? I think all of that signals how sensitive they are to pricing thresholds that would really, really hurt them. And so I don't think they're going to go well beyond that when the PS6 comes out. I don't think the market would be receptive to like a $900 console, $1,000 console. I just don't think so. On a handheld, it's different. You look at this handheld and you're like, well, it's a different device. It's not a console. It's basically a handheld PC. It's a portable PC. It's a portable gaming PC device. So I think this year alone, PlayStation has signaled that they are very well aware that you can go too expensive with something and it will really, really hurt you. That's why they held off. If all they were trying to do was make as much money as possible and they were blind and stupid and, just sort of blindly chasing the greed of that, sure, they could have been like, yeah, raise the prices on all the consoles, raise the prices on all the games because, Xbox is doing it, so now we can. That's why I think people that are speculating that, no competition, consoles are going to be, the PS6 is going to be $1,000. I think these people are throwing a dart with a blindfold on right off a cliff. Like they're not even aiming at a target. I think that prediction is terrible. I don't think it's based on any business analysis at all. If you do 10 minutes of analysis just this year in earnings calls and the behavior of PlayStation in response to Xbox, I think that prediction looks absolutely ridiculous. To be like, oh no, yeah, PlayStation 6 is going to be $1,000 because Xbox is leaving the console space. Xbox is so down in the dirt in the console space right now, while doing 2 price increases in a year and doing $80 games. And PlayStation's like, yeah, we're not going to do that. Now, again, I'm going to restate this for the umpteenth time today. That's not PlayStation being pro-consumer. That's PlayStation being pro-profit. They know that if they go too high, it'll hurt profit. It'll hurt demand. They can't go too high. They can't. Competition keeps companies in check. I think consumers keep companies in check more than competition. I think this idea that I think this is a complete overstatement to be like, oh, well, the presence of Xbox has kept PlayStation in check. They'd have been charging an arm and a leg for their consoles and their games if it wasn't for Xbox. I don't agree with that. I don't think that that's true, because there's always a threshold of what a consumer is willing to put up with. I think consumers keep the companies in check more than other companies. Because if you don't buy it, they've got a problem on their hands. Like, if they struggle to move units of a PlayStation 6 because they get bullish and they're like, yeah, $1,000, we don't have to worry about Xbox anymore. I don't think that's going to happen, because they know what that's going to do to demand. That's going to kill them on demand. They would really, really struggle to sell them. I'd bet 100 gifted members of the PS6 will be 800. No, and I think it'll be $600. Let me add to the total here, though. Pimptastical with 42 months, bumping the line to 74. Was really hoping for you to finally play Black Myth Wukong, but my man is fancy. Thank you for 42 months. Brother, I'm not fancy. I have pretty basic standards, and that game just doesn't look or feel good on console. It just doesn't. A 93 gig update should have been transformative, and it wasn't. It wasn't at all. I mean it. Like, that level of a download, the size of that download, it should have been ridiculously transformative to the experience, and it wasn't. It's still one of the ugliest performance modes I've ever played, and the game just doesn't feel good. There's still some kind of weird latency with button presses. It just doesn't... I was just fighting basic enemies. I'm like, this doesn't feel tight. This doesn't feel good. What people seem to forget is that PlayStation has made that mistake already. What mistake are you referring to, JC? I can't go from First Berserker Kazan to Yote, or even a game like Sekiro. Those games feel great from moment one. I just don't think Black Myth feels good. It doesn't feel tight like those other games. There's something with it that doesn't feel right. And I think it's probably related to frame pacing or frames or something. I think that overstates Xbox influence in the market for the last decade. In the 360 era, it for sure had an impact on what Sony did. Once the Xbox One happened, it was over. Oh, he's referring to the PS3 mistake. Yeah. He's on about the PS3 mistake. Yeah, for sure. Like, I don't think... Okay, so let me say it this way. I think other companies in the market have an impact on the other companies in the same space. I think Xbox continuing in the direction they're going and Nintendo continuing in the direction that they're going, yes, I believe that will have some level of impact on PlayStation. However, I don't think it's to the degree that people think. I think people are overstating it. By the way, we're one member away from a milestone, y'all. This is it's a very weird week. We're one away from 75. As soon as it hits 75, whoever hits it gets it. I owe you. You had a great time on Wukong, but on PC, yeah. If you got a PC, you can make it run, very, very, very well and very reliably. It's very awkward on console. So I think people are overstating the impact. I do think there is an impact. Like, I definitely think that, like, yes, Xbox was saying, hey, we've got to go procure exclusives. And then PlayStation's like, we got to go procure exclusives. And then PlayStation's like, we got to be better about having better relationships with developers. And we got to have really, really strong first-party games out there, right? And Hex and Matt are both going to try to hit it. Boom and boom. 76. I owe YouTube a single member. Thank you so much for doing that. I'm going to pay that up right now. Is Wukong better on PC? Yes. James comes in with a single gifted as well and bumps it to 77. Basically, it became known that they were having trouble developing the game for console. I don't know if it's a Unreal Engine issue or what, but yeah, they're having difficulty. And Petrov's trying to summon a 50 bomb. He's spamming the farty bomb. Brian M. with 31 months says, how is the PS3 comparable with the prospective PS6 price gouging customers? PS3 was sold at $200 loss. Very different. Well, I think he's saying they've learned from, positioning your console in a bad way and it hurting you. The Wukong update wasn't 93 gig. You just needed 93 gig of space to hold the game and download the update. Sir, that doesn't make any sense if the update's not 93 gigs. What am I holding, brother? The install of the game alone at launch was like 102 gig. Why do I need an additional 93 gig of space when I'm downloading the update? That doesn't make any sense. It was built on UE 5.0, the least optimized version of Unreal, says Wired Row. There you go. There you go. We're behind pace, though. We needed this to be at 100 yesterday, so keep it going. Make sure you guys are checking your primes. You guys on YouTube, if you hit the $sign, you might have a renewal to celebrate. Also, make sure you guys are hitting the like button. We're an hour into the broadcast. Let's try to get to 200 likes really quickly. That definitely helps us. It brings more people in. It was a big update, but not sure what they did. The update was 93 gig, but that doesn't mean it added 93 gig to the install size. Yes, it didn't make the game 93 gig larger, but the update itself was 93 gig in size. You were downloading that file that then needed to be installed. My opinion is the new PlayStation handheld device will release in 2027 and they'll settle on the PS6 launching in 2028. That's weird because I just said that. That's funny how that keeps happening. Raijin with 49 months comes in with the VIP. Thank you so much. Boom. And then Joker Quinn gifts a member. Boom. 79. I appreciate that so much. When's the update? Yesterday. Yeah, the Black Myth Wukong update was yesterday. Yeah. 93 gig update hit yesterday. So I downloaded the entire game fresh and tested it, and I still think it looks and runs poorly on performance mode, and it doesn't feel good. It just doesn't feel good. And then Raijin with 25 months of memberships over here on YouTube. Maybe we'll get our first 20 bomb of the week. We're 20 away from the first 100. Nice tee up, Raijin. We will see. Size of an update's not adding to the install size. A lot of that's replacement data. Yeah, the point was it didn't feel like a big update to me. You can switch between Black Myth Wukong performance mode and the legacy performance mode. They left the old one in there. You can literally switch between them. I didn't see a big difference. I was like, it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look good. I don't know what to say. It's one of the ugliest performance modes I've ever played. I re-downloaded it. It looks great to me. Okay, we have different standards. That's fine. I think it looks blurry and ugly, and it doesn't feel good when you're trying to have these little quick moves and iframes. It just doesn't feel great. I think the new performance mode looks crisper and smoother, but the downgrade in lighting is too much. It just looks ugly, Nick. I can't get over it. I'm like, it doesn't help that I'm coming from Yote, which was a game specifically built for PS5 as well as the Pro. That doesn't help. But, like, I also played First Berserker Kazan this year, and I thought it looked and ran great. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, Kazan ran perfectly well. I didn't have any issues with that game's performance, frame rate, no input latency, you know. Where do you redeem the Prime sub? On Twitch. Did they turn off a bunch of ray tracing, the Jedi Survivor approach? I'm not sure. They did something with the lighting. He still looks like the world looks fuzzy when you're moving the camera. I don't know. How did it look worse on your TV than it did on your monitor? I'm trying to figure that out. I don't know, bigger screen. It's easier to see the flickering effect maybe on a bigger screen. I don't know. People need to realize that every component in the PS6 will be smaller than the PS5 and therefore cheaper to manufacture. The console will be smaller and lighter, so cheaper to ship. Yes, some of the internal leaks and documentation that we've seen about the PS6 is that you are gonna. I'm sorry, not you. They are trying to keep production costs down. They're trying to keep price down. That's another thing that I think is getting lost in the shuffle and the hullabaloo about pricing. They're like, oh, it's going to be $1,000, and I'm like, I don't think so. I don't think so. They're actively trying to keep production costs and price down because they are well aware that a too high of a price on this device will murder demand. You have to remember that a PlayStation 6 is a new base model. And when you're doing a new base model, you need good adoption. You need a lot of people to buy it. Kazan Metascore was a shame. The game was a top-notch. It was a mix of God of War and Souls-like. Should be Game of the Year contender, probably not due to its low score. It'll land in the action game category. I don't know if it'll win, but it'll be there. You should do a YouTube short on how to link your Amazon Prime. I appreciate the suggestion, but YouTube doesn't like that sort of thing. You can't really use this platform to promote the other platform and how to support on another platform. It's why I don't invoke the name of the purple platform that often. I try to not do that. Neither platform is too big on the idea of being like, hey, go to the other one and support on the other one. That's why we kind of keep it, generic. The day a base console drops at 1,000 is the day I walk away from gaming. Well, not necessarily. I could see it like in 15 years, inflation, costs of living, costs of everything just continues to trend upward. That by the time we get there, $1,000 in 15 years would be like $700 today or something. Like, we could certainly head in that direction. And if you're, the hope would be that like median and average incomes would rise as well, but that might be wishful thinking. But yeah, every live YouTuber doesn't mention the purple app. It's funny. So there's active like AI listening to what we're saying so that they can do chat summaries. It's also listening so it can put me in the correct funnels. So if I'm sitting here talking about PlayStation 6 and the PS6 and Black Myth Wukong, it knows within a certain approximation of like where to put me. You start talking about that, and it's like, I don't know where to put you. And frankly, the owl is going to say no. It's going to say, we don't want to put you anywhere because you're promoting something else. Yeah, Purple doesn't do active AI listening to the same degree. The determining factor of the PS6's price will be RAM prices in 2027. Yo, thank you so much for coming back in, Nick, and bumping the line to 81 on the week. Appreciate you guys doing your renewals. Appreciate you guys that are supporting directly with the Member Plus. And Metallica Matt comes in with 3 months. Here's your Prime back to red. There it is. That's how you do that. Boom. A Prime bumps the line to 82. Thank you. Finish Yote, literally Game of the Year with a real message, no spoilers. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Henry says, I finally got my Prime redeemed. Well, thank you for doing that. I think. You might need to refresh to celebrate it, because it didn't show up in my chat. Sometimes you got to do it and then refresh, and then you have a celebration option. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We're about an hour in, so let me do my segments for you guys now. All right, I'll have some timestamps for the people coming later. We've kind of established that that's what I'm gonna do. Let's do this. A Black Myth Wukong trailer is what we need. Okay. Get the annotations off, and then I like to do the half on this one. It helps me see what's going on. Wait, that's the wrong one. There we go. Well, how did this crop get messed up? Oh, I know what's wrong. Hang on. There we go. I had zoomed in for whatever reason. Okay. PS6 will use the GDDR7 RAM. I don't know if we'll end up using this or not. I'll record it and we'll just see. So if you guys go crazy with the members while I'm doing this, I'll add them after the fact. All right. I appreciate and thank you for liking my perspective comment on Ghost of Yote. I was reading a lot of comments and a lot of things that were said, so I'm not quite sure what you said. You might have to jog my memory. I was reading through a bunch of comments. Jerry, welcome back to membership. You guys got to be on a member plus or above for it to count in the total. Gifted members, I can't count you because I don't want to count a gifted member twice in the total. So make sure you guys are using that upgrade command if you want to count towards total. Upgrades count as 2, by the way. We want them so bad that we count them as a double. Myth Wukong when it first came out. I was one of the first people to draw attention to the fact that the performance mode of this game on console was pretty terrible. I said it was one of the ugliest performance modes I'd ever seen. Now, a lot of the big-time PlayStation fans were acting like everything was fine and it looked fine and ran perfectly well and good because they loved being able to celebrate the game while their rivals couldn't. No sound? Rip audio. Hang on, let me hit stop. I'm not muted. Hello? Twitch, did you guys lose audio? You're back, we hear you? Audio just came back? Wait, both platforms lost audio? No, we hear you. You started with no sound? Let me hit record again and see if it happens again. Just on the video, could hear you. It cut for like 14 seconds. We hear you on Twitch. I never lost audio, says Raijin. For 10 seconds. I'm going to hit record again, and I want to see, does it do anything to the audio? We've been having some weird behavior when we go to record. And I'm recording right now. Has it done anything to the audio? I'm stopping recording. Did it do anything to the audio right there when I hit record? Audio died for something between 4 and 20 seconds. The intro was muted for me. Okay, hang on. Let me open up the file and see what it did when I recorded that. That's really, really weird. Yeah. When I hit record, it like killed audio. The beginning of that video has no audio. What the frick is going on? Like no music, no nothing. Yeah, even my recording, the audio died. Like I've never had that experience. I was looking at it over the weekend. I think it's a camera setting. A camera setting? How could my camera affect audio? That's the sound card jacking up, not my camera. Because if you guys lost Spotify, you lost more than just my voice. You lost everything. There was no music or anything. I don't know. Every once in a while, there was an upload that I sent to Creature, and he was like, yeah, your audio cut out. And I went and watched it, and I was like, no, it didn't. And my video was fine. By the way, music is still dead? Wait. I just turned it up and back down again. You guys can't hear the music either? Background music is gone. What the frick is going on? I don't understand what's happening. Your BIOS is acting up? That doesn't make an ounce of sense. All right, let me close and reopen Spotify. No music, but we can hear you. I don't understand. It's being triggered by persistent frame setting or something, best I can tell. We can deal with it later. Can't deal with it later. I don't if people can't hear music. Okay, tell me if the music's back now. Well, no, Unjerry did a thing. Hang on. Unjerry, thank you for upgrading. There we go. That counts as 2. Windows audio driver took a dump? Probably. Still no music? All right, hang on a second. Okay. How about now? I disabled and re-enabled the audio device. I've had to do that with my microphone a couple of times. It's back? Okay. There's been something very, very strange with this computer for a while. Okay? And this has been something that I've had to do regularly. I have to disable and re-enable my Scarlett, or OBS doesn't even register that the microphone is on. The microphone is on. The microphone is working. I can tell that it's working. It's working in Discord. Okay? I have to go into audio devices, right-click disable, and then right-click enable the microphone just so OBS can see it. It's super weird. There's some kind of an audio driver device problem with this rig. I don't know what it is. New build coming. This is a new build. This rig's not even a year old yet. It was a pre-built that we bought. This is the only thing I've been having issues with. Once we changed the quick boot in the BIOS, I didn't have any issues. I don't know. I don't know why it's happening. I don't get it. I've dealt with that too a couple of times. Yeah. All right. All right, I'm gonna... How's my audio? Is my audio still good? This is so annoying because it's you're paranoid. You're like, I don't want to start the segment and then have my audio cut out again. And I don't have us on low latency on YouTube, so it takes YouTube forever to respond to, like, when I ask a question. I'm like, is it better? It's so irritating. We got rid of the black screen thing. We fixed that. Is good? Okay. I guess let's try this again. Lono's kind of overly obsessive about his audio quality too. Yeah, it needs to sound really good. That's something that we really, really focus on. Your Scarlett does the same thing. It's super weird. I never had that problem on the on the old rig. So, I don't know. Okay, let's try this again. Let's hope it doesn't do it again. So there was a huge update for Black Myth Wukong. You might not have seen this. If you did see it, hopefully you had enough space to install it. The game itself takes about 100 gig, and then you need an additional like 93 gig of space to download this. Now, this was for the console, and this was to improve performance. Now, if you're not familiar with this, my position on performance of Black Myth Wukong on console was that it was pretty bad. I was sort of one of the first people to talk about this. I went to Twitter. I said, this is one of the ugliest performance modes I've ever encountered. I got a lot of pushback. You know, there were a lot of PlayStation fans that were thrilled to have sort of a de facto timed exclusive, you know, because it had to be delayed going to Xbox. And so they were like overly celebrating and praising this game as if it ran perfectly well and good. And I did not agree with that. I said, this actually runs very poorly. And even when I was willing to overlook that and play through it, it got worse. Like, I got to bosses where input latency and dropped inputs were causing pretty severe problems. Now, Digital Foundry did a breakdown of Black Myth Wukong on console and explained what was happening. They were using frame gen to double the frames. Basically, it was a 30 FPS game, and every other frame was fake. Okay, it was like interpolated, or however you pronounce the word. And so whenever you have that, what it does is it creates a very, very disjointed experience for the player. You're hitting buttons and it doesn't feel like they're hitting at the right time, or it feels like your button presses are getting completely dropped. That's because you're watching basically an illusion. You're not actually seeing the true frames of the game. You're seeing a doubled frames with frame gen. Digital Foundry famously called this an abuse of the technology. So I was looking forward to some type of a patch like this, because I was, long awaiting Black Myth Wukong. I had been watching the game for 4 or 5 years and was very much looking forward to it, and it was so bad that I couldn't play it. Well, I tried out the update. And the good news is that they allow you to use the old performance mode. It's labeled as Legacy. They also allow you to use the new performance mode. Well, I did some testing, and it doesn't really look all that much better, and it doesn't really perform all that much better. I couldn't really notice that big of a difference. It still looked almost stuttery and blurry when I would spin the camera. I was getting in very basic fights with very basic enemies. It wasn't challenging, and there was still this feel of latency. There was this feel of delay. It was extremely hard to sort of put into words what the issue is. It just doesn't feel good. I've played games like Sekiro, First Berserker Kazan. I'm playing Ghost of Yotei right now. I feel these games are very responsive. Even Lies of P. I got all the way to the swamp monster before I got, annoyed with that game. And it always felt good. It always felt responsive. Something just doesn't feel good in Black Myth Wukong on console. It doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good. It just has a very muddiness, ugliness to it. And especially when you go to do dodges or attacks and you feel like things are delayed and you feel like things have a bit of latency to them, I get very frustrated by that. And that is one of the things that I was hoping would be fixed with this significant update. Sadly, I have to report that I tried it in here on my monitor. I tried it out there in my living room, and I really just did not see that big of a difference. It just really, really felt like it was the same, not very pretty game. And if it would have felt good, if it would have felt crisp and responsive, I could overlook some of those things. But I never want to be in a game with very tight and very difficult combat where I feel like my button presses and I feel like my movement is sort of hindered or sloppy or, non-responsive. Most of the games that I have played like this, even if it's a side-scroller like Nine Souls or Shinobi Art of Vengeance, those are games where the controls are very tight and very responsive and they're very challenging, and so it all flows and works together. And this game, obviously, to me, just is one of those games where if you're going to ask that level of response time and reaction from the player, it needs to feel tight. It needs to feel polished. This game is known for its struggles on console. They actually needed help bringing it to console. PlayStation had to help them bring it to PlayStation. It came to Xbox late. I would argue it is still not in a great state on the console, especially when you got to download a 93 gig update. I expected a dramatic overhaul and a dramatic difference like when they fixed Jedi Survivor. That is not what happened. I'm open to hearing different thoughts on this. I'm open to see tech breakdowns to argue whether or not this made a significant difference. So let me know in the comments below what you think or what you've heard, but those are my thoughts. Okay. Not money-hatted? No, it wasn't money-hatted. That was a total fabrication and rumor, and there was no truth or substance to it. PlayStation leaned in with engineers to help them bring it to the console. That got twisted and contorted into this rumor that it was a money-hatted timed exclusive. It was not. That was completely made up. Isn't Lono using AV1? Doesn't YouTube transcode in real time or give us the AV1 feed? I don't know. People have been saying, I went and looked at my Ghost of Yotei stream, and people were saying that it was like getting artifacting and stuff, and I didn't see it. I thought AV1 did a great job playing those streams and looked very clear, but I had people complaining about artifacting and stuff. I'm like, that you shouldn't be getting any of that on AV1. It should look significantly better than previous gameplay streams of the past. You know, people were saying they were getting it right there with that. That shouldn't be happening. You know, it shouldn't. My Wukong on Steam doesn't have an update. What update are y'all talking about? I just checked. I believe this was just for consoles. Yeah. I believe this was just for consoles. So, it looked like some of you guys had to refresh. Some people were saying that they were having issues with the chat as well. So, I don't know. I don't know what's going on today. I don't know what's happening. Okay, let me get you guys a let me get you guys a trailer for the next segment. Okay. Consoles and PC, but I think console update dropped first. Oh, it is coming to PC this week as well. Okay. Okay. I think this person said it was money-hatted. Nobody definitively said it was money-hatted. They said that there was a rumor. It was claimed to be under some kind of exclusivity deal. So there was never any concrete information. The concrete information came out. That's why the conversation was kind of silly. It became known that PlayStation had helped them develop the game for PlayStation. They were having trouble bringing the game to console. PlayStation engineers assisted the developers in bringing it. So that is what happened, and that got turned into something else. It was not an exclusivity deal. He strongly suggested it was money-hatted. He struggles with investigation and fact-finding. He also doesn't care about truth and evidence, so I don't know why anybody takes him seriously. He's got to be one of the most journalistic malpractice people out there. There's no reason to take him seriously. He is allergic to facts, evidence, and investigation. He doesn't understand those words. They're not in his vocabulary. All right, do we need a trailer for... Yeah, we can. Windows Central and IGN strongly suggested it as well. I'd have to go look at the original reporting. The original report was, I was told there's a deal. That's what Jez says. So Jez says, I was told there's a deal. He spoke to people that told him there was a deal, right? Then there was an interview where Microsoft's spokesperson strongly insinuated that something was going on. They're like, yeah, we can't speak to the deals of our partners, suggesting there was some kind of a deal. Then you ended up with other reports running and basically saying, that there seems to be a deal or something. The details of the deal came out. Jez covered this on one of the Xbox podcasts that he does with Rand. He said, we heard there was some kind of a deal. We found out that it was PlayStation engineers helping bring the game to PlayStation. Like, that was the end of the matter. Like, that was the end of it. I mean, he said that on a podcast. I saw the clip. It was like, that was it. Those are the details of the deal. The details of the deal was a group of engineers helped them bring the game to PlayStation because they were having difficulty. That's it. That was it. That was the end of the matter. There wasn't some sort of money-handed paid exclusivity deal. There wasn't. Ryan McCaffrey said that it was, and then he deleted his tweet. But there were certainly people that were doing that. They were running with that narrative and saying that it was money had it, and it was like, it wasn't. No one would pay money for an exclusivity deal that they couldn't flex, market, and brag about. Nobody would do that. That doesn't make an ounce of sense. They also wouldn't pay for an exclusivity deal on a game where they had to help bring it to their platform, and even then it didn't perform that great. Like, it had performance issues at launch on their platform. I don't think the PC version is as egregious as on console at launch, but by comparison to other games, the combat feels less responsive overall. Yeah, I just don't feel like it feels tight. Like when you've played what I consider to be the pinnacle of melee-based combat games like Sekiro, Lies of P, First Berserker Kazan, even Tsushima and Yote, very responsive games, very tight games. When you've played the pinnacle and you play a game that's not as good, it just doesn't feel as good. I don't know what to tell you. If people get upset about that and they want to continue to run with some false narrative that I'm hating on the game, they're just lying. I've never once hated on that game. I was in its corner for a very long time. I said it was a potential Game of the Year contender, and then when it came out, I was honest about how I experienced it. I don't know why anybody would classify that as hating. Like, I guess I could have gone along with like the fanboy talking points and called it an exclusive when it wasn't, and acted like it was God's gift to gaming when I don't think that it was. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand how, no matter how I talk about things, it gets interpreted into evil. And it's like, if I would have praised it and acted like it was amazing, people would have been like, you're just being a pony. When I'm honest about how it runs and honest about how it doesn't feel good, I get called a hater. It's like you're basically in a lose-lose situation. You've already fought me on this. Yeah, but I think even you, it's super responsive, but that's just my experience. I think even you've been willing to admit, though, that performance is rough and the latency issue is a problem. Like, I think even Lobo, you've been willing to admit there are issues with the game. So, I'm not interested in fighting about it. And I know you're being cheeky, but I'm not interested in fighting about it. I'm just telling people my experience. And if you had a different experience, great. But I would rather be honest with people and tell them about my experience than to just like gloss over it and act like it's no big deal. Like, oh yeah, it's perfect, it's fine, it's great, it's a big win for PlayStation. Like, I felt like a lot of people were doing that. Like, they were more interested in celebrating it as a win for PlayStation than just talking about it in an authentic way. All right, I need to have Twitch pulled up because they'll tell me quicker if we have any audio issues. I need to do the next segment, and you guys will have to, quickly tell me if we're having any audio issues. I'm really hoping that was just like a weird audio driver flub, like the audio driver's reset or something. I rebooted the PC yesterday, and I've been doing that button push on the keyboard to reset the video stuff every morning before I go live. I know Ilono doesn't like it, no parry. I'm definitely not big on a game where everything is about dodging. I'm not big on that, but I was getting into the zone with that game, and I was really enjoying it, and then I got to a fight where the latency and the dropped inputs was just infuriating. I was like, I'm not doing this, dude. I am not. And if people want to pretend that it wasn't happening, they're just liars. I'm sorry, they are. It was documented by Digital Foundry. It was documented by others. Skill issue, you just got to get good. No, it was documented. It had latency issues. It had dropped inputs. That is an actual measurable thing. It was a technical thing that was going on. So to go from Sekiro to that game and to act like, yeah, it's a skill issue, there's no dropped inputs, I think is just so dishonest. Have you tried the game Voidbreaker? I've been having my eyes on it for a while. I forgot that they dropped the demo. Lono was mad it got nominated for Game of the Year and Returnal didn't. They weren't even in the same year, so stupid thing to say. Yeah, I've been meaning to try the Voidbreaker. Demo because it dropped on PlayStation, I think, Was that this week or last week? I'm not quite sure. Now, if you said that I was mad that Deathloop got nominated for Game of the Year and not Returnal, that would be an accurate statement. That would be an accurate statement. I don't give a frick about the Game of the Year nomination. I didn't like the people going around acting like it got snubbed or something when it wasn't even in the top 100 scores of the year. Yeah, you're thinking of Deathloop, Johnny. They didn't even come out in the same year. I don't give a frick they got nominated for Game of the Year. All right, let's get into this PS6 piece. All right, let's get into it. And hopefully my audio doesn't jag up. So when is the PlayStation 6 releasing, and why are we hearing so much about it right now? Well, hardware plans take time. Preliminary plans and timelines are bound to crop up, 2, maybe 3 years before the console actually comes to the market. Even now, given how prominent leaker culture has become, you should just sort of expect these things to crop up and come to the surface in the years leading up to a piece of hardware coming to the market. Now, very reliable sources like Kepler and Moore's Law is Dead, they're getting very consistent info as of late, and their track record and their accuracy is really starting to precede them, right? So what's the current timeline? What are we hearing? And this was the recent video from Mark Cerny and AMD and Project Amethyst. This is essentially sort of the first commercial trailer thing for the PlayStation 6. They didn't say it, but that's essentially what this is. This is like laying that groundwork. Now, I'm going to say at the end what I think the timeline will end up being. I've got pretty soft confirmation that my timeline's more accurate, which is kind of funny. Now, Insider Gaming reported on this in the wake of this Mark Cerny video that I've got running behind me. We reacted to it on the channel. If you want to see my reaction to that, it's here. Convos about this started cropping up, and here's what Insider Gaming reported. Quote, on the discussion forum NeoGAF, a user mentioned 2027 being on the table for the new system. That led to Kepler L2, who's been accurate with hardware information in the past, to chime in. And he said, not just on the table, it's the plan unless any unexpected delays happen. I also believe Moore's Law is Dead recently claimed that his info was also pointing to a 2027 release. But here is where it gets complicated. What about the handheld? Initially, Moore's Law is Dead was referring to it as the PS6 handheld. The reality is it will actually be more of a PS5 handheld from everything that we have heard, and it is supposed to be arriving before the PlayStation 6 arrives, not after. So this to me really affects the timing and changes even informs my own prediction. Unless, of course, the handheld drops next year in 2026, which that's possible. And given the market being more receptive to handhelds right now, it could be very interesting to see where they land with respect to pricing, because the PlayStation Portal is not a handheld. It's a companion device. It's an accessory. It's $200. It's like the cost of an Elite controller, and it is a remote play device. It's a cloud play device. It is not a handheld. It's not meant to be played in the way that a handheld will play, because you can't play anything on it natively. Now, especially if you look at the price of the PS5 and the PS5 Pro, since they just did the $50 price increase, I'm very interested where the PlayStation handheld lands with respect to price. So what do I think the timeline ends up looking like? Well, something to remember is that the Nintendo Switch 2 was in production and set to release in 2024, but Nintendo pushed to 2025 to ensure that they could meet demand. And the Switch 2 was able to exceed the Switch 1 in sales in its first year because of this. Now, I could see PlayStation maybe doing the same thing. This could mean that 2027 would be the PlayStation handheld, and then 2028 would be the PlayStation 6. I have felt for a while that they would extend this generation by about 1 year, and I've thought that for a variety of reasons. Like, I'm not just sort of guessing. First, the first 2 years of this launch for the PlayStation 5 were rough due to chip shortages and the global pandemic. That's one reason I thought, you know what, those first 2 years were kind of rough. They're going to bump everything back by 1 year because of the timing of game releases and the timing of game development. Everything's going to get kind of shuffled back. Secondly, another reason that I've thought this is when we were just 4 years into this gen, an earnings call said that we were entering into the latter half of the gen, so the second half, right? Well, we were 4 years in. That sounds to me like there's 4 more years. So if you're saying that in 2024, stands to reason that 4 more years would get us to 2028. The third reason that I thought this, and this is just very recent, this latest video, Mark Cerny in AMD, he says that the new technology that they're working on, Project Amethyst, will show up on the console or on a console in a few years. Now, a few doesn't sound like a couple. It doesn't sound like two. It sounds like a few. That typically means about 3 years. So 3 years from the time that they publish this is 2028. You're seeing things start to line up here. My gut instinct about pushing back for a year because of that opening year, right? Them saying that we're entering into the latter half, and then Mark Cerny saying that in the recent video of a few years. I think these type of estimates and plans for hardware and their delivery, they're common to slip, especially the release date, not the actual parts and the pieces. Production doesn't necessarily slip or stall. The contracts have to be honored, parts have to be ordered and paid for. Ship date of the console, though, well, that's the least concrete part of these leaks. We saw that with the Nintendo Switch 2. You also have to wonder, if they see the Switch 2 and the Switch 1 landing on years where other consoles don't, and that was an advantage. A lot of people looked at the Nintendo Switch 1 and the Nintendo Switch 2. They landed in offbeat years. They did not land at the same time as the Xbox and the PlayStation, so they're not doing any of the hive mind share. They've got basically a run of the market for hardware. Now, Xbox's next hardware is allegedly some type of PC hybrid. It's going to be more expensive than the PS6. It's also going to be more powerful, given it's aimed at being a PC hybrid that will need to be more performant and it will need to be stronger. This will mean that it will likely then appeal to a very different demographic of players, because we're hearing prices at around $1,000 or higher for this future Xbox PC console hybrid. An easy way to avoid these comparisons, an easy way to avoid this sort of like back and forth of like which is better, is just land in a completely different year. There's no reason to even be adjacent to this device when it hits the market, because you can land a year later and kind of do what Nintendo has done, and you're the device, you're the hardware that everybody's talking about that year. Now, given that they're targeting very different demographics of user with these two devices, I don't think a console in a traditional sense, which is what PlayStation is pursuing, and a PC hybrid, I don't think they're targeting the same users, especially because of the price point. I would see a very strong impetus to say, listen, we don't need to land at the same time. In the past, there was a very, very strong reason and motivation to land at the exact same time as the other console. Right now, we have reliable leakers corroborating each other's claims that 2027 is when it's going to land. But we've seen this with video games a lot lately. Release dates are the easiest thing to slip and move because things just take longer, or market conditions might not be conducive. With the global situation and tariffs and inflation, there could be more reason to have this thing slip. So for now, what we're hearing is that the target for the PlayStation 6 is 2027. That raises lots of questions about when the handheld will actually land, because I know pretty confidently that the handheld will be coming first. That would mean maybe next year. If that happens, then the timeline is on pace and it's happening a little bit sooner than I expected. Currently, though, I'm going to hold fast on this prediction based on what I have felt, based on what I have observed, and based on some things that I have been told, that the handheld lands in 2027 and the PlayStation 6 release date will be sometime in 2028. However, that is just my perspective on this. I'd love to hear your perspective on this. You can leave a comment below or be sure to stop by one of my daily live streams. Well, we managed to record a video without the audio screwing up. That is so frustrating when stuff like that happens. It's like, well, hopefully nothing messes up. I believe Moore's Law is Ed said production in 2027. He had a video where I'm fairly confident he said timeline for delivery was 2027. I wonder if people are getting their wires crossed. Wired rope. I wonder if people are getting their wires crossed and production is 2027. Delivery is maybe a bit more up in the air. You know, it's possible it's a bit more up in the air. I love how paranoid you are now. Oh, it's terrible. But back in the day, whenever I was only streaming on Purple, the most nightmarish situation was dropping frames. Like if I looked and saw the little green box turn yellow or red, that was the worst. That was like like nightmare inducing. You know? That was terrible. Which, by the way, guys, help us out today. We've had a nice, strong turnout for the day. I did pause the thing that nobody likes during that segment. Do me a favor and hit the like button. Try to get us to 300 likes. YouTube's done something a little bit different, and if you guys are running an ad blocker, it'd be great if you would turn that off when you watch my shows. You can all, you know, I get it. I know it's not fun for that stuff to be happening, but it's really, really hurting guys that do what we do when you guys are running those, because it actually doesn't, you're not counting as a view anymore. We've not focused on it. We've not talked about it. I didn't make any videos. A lot of guys made videos and they're like, oh my gosh, everything's bad. Please support my Patreon. I'm like, you know what? Become a member if you can. That's a huge way to help. Another really easy way to help is, man, shut that thing off when you're here, because you're not counting toward my anything, which is a big bummer to see. We'll have a really strong day and a really strong turnout, and then the numbers don't really show it because a lot of you run an ad blocker. So you're actively hurting me when you do that. I hate to say it, but it's true. They've done something, and if you disable it while you're here, you know, I shut them off and disable them as much as I can. I try to minimize their presence as much as I can. You got to meet me in the middle if you can, because that is causing some pretty significant damage to metrics all of a sudden. And unfortunately, I don't have any control over it. You know, I do the best I can. I don't, the people that sub to me on Purple never see one. They never see one. I turn them off for people on Purple that sub, and I pause them as much as I can on YouTube. Like I do everything I can to minimize their presence for you guys, because I know they're frustrating. So, you don't run the ads anyway. I'm commonly pausing them. I am. So running an ad blocker when you're here, you just don't need to. You just don't need to. Hangry Higgs upgraded to a member plus. Boom, boom, 86. That is such a huge help. That is, I'm not kidding you. That is the easiest way to help us kind of glide above all this platform-wide crap that's been going on. Seriously, you doing a $6 a month membership is, we don't got to pull the ripcord on any panic buttons or nothing. We can just keep on going when you have those folks that are just doing that. I know times are tough, and if you can't, we have people gifting all of the time. So you're on premium. If you're on premium, please make sure you're not running an ad blocker as well. You don't need one. Premium supports me, but only if you're not running an ad blocker. Does that make sense? If you're watching me, okay, if you're watching me and you have premium, but you're also running ad blocker, that's not helpful. You need to have it disabled, even if you're using premium. Swear to God, YouTube is doing my nut in, LOL. Not only did it time gate me, it put me in the baseline membership. So what, they made you wait and they wouldn't let you off the baseline? 50/70/10 mid early to 2027 for production. Rope, I'm telling you, there was a previous video where Moore's Law said the ship date, the estimated release date for PS6 was 2027. Now, maybe he's got new information, and his latest video, he's now saying, oh, mid to early 2027 is for production. That still could mean they're trying to ship that year, couldn't it? They could be producing, you know, middle to early and shipping in the fourth quarter. I don't know. I'm pretty sure he has another video where he said release date was targeting 2027. We heard that from him first. I know we did. I'm very confident we heard the 2027 date for Moore's Law is dead. We heard it from him first, and then we heard it from Kepler. I feel like that's the order of things. I could be wrong, but that's my current memory of the matter, is that we heard it from Moore first. He updates over time. Okay. I initially said that I thought that's what was going on. I said, I bet you they're getting their wires crossed and production's going to start in 2027 and then the thing's going to ship in 2028. I've said that for a while. My comment was based off of SkillOps' take on the narrative and how it doesn't revert to cruelty as a mean to up the stakes. Oh, yeah, I thought your comment was very good, Citizen JV. It was a long comment. I thought it was very, very good. Yeah. Sneaky Wolf says announcement 2027, release 2028. Yeah, I agree with that timeline. I do. They could. I could anticipate a pretty big showcase in 2027. They announced the handheld. The handheld goes live that holiday 2027. The release date of PS6 is the following year. Yeah, I could totally see that. So, I got one more for you. I got something on Arc Raiders. All right. Okay. Yo, Doc Whiskey coming in with the VIP renewal. Thank you so much. Let me add you to the total. Thank you for doing that. Appreciate that, man. I just realized that based off what you said, I think they're lining up the PS6 with the GTA release. Huh? How? W Synthwave, thank you. This is all like AI generated synthwave. How? GTA's next year. What would a 2027 or a 2028 release of the PS6 have to do with GTA? What are you thinking there? I'm not tracking with your logic. If the rumors are true, I might be on PlayStation only with next generation Xbox might be digital only. You said 2027. I think they announce it in 2027. Production will start in 2027. They'll release it in 2028. GTA 6 is next year, homie. I don't see how they line up. GTA 6 was supposed to be fall of this year. You think it's going to get delayed again? By a whole year? No. Absolutely not. I don't think so. No. I'd be willing to put money on that. GTA could certainly slip again, but not by a whole year. Good golly. Henry, thank you so much for gifting a member over here on Purple. That rounds us out to 88. Thank you, sir. It would have been cool, though. I mean, you talk about a slam dunk. That'd be insane to have your new console out the same year as GTA 6, bragging about best performance of GTA 6. I mean, that'd be something. I don't think so, though. Yeah, the current rumor is that GTA 6 is going to slip again. They're having trouble. What was the one rumor or leak? They're having trouble with like the later part of the game or something. I don't know. All right, hang on. Let's get into this. And you boys on Twitch, lock in and help me because I can't tell if the audio thing happens. So if the audio thing happens, just let me know. There's a couple of you over here I trust that you wouldn't troll me. So we got one more segment to do here. That's never happened before, so I'm just going to assume something with the audio drivers had a hiccup and hopefully doesn't happen again. So. Yeah. All right. We'll start this trailer here. Arc Raiders may have cracked the code for how to best handle seasonal character wipes. Now, this topic is a pretty contentious one. The whole point of grinding and getting stuff in a game, well, what's the point of that? If you're going to take that away from me, if you're going to, reset my character, what happens if I run out of time? What if I don't have enough time to finish the thing before you do a seasonal reset or you start everybody over? Now, others might push back and say, hey, we need a reason to have re-engagement every new season, right? If you're unfamiliar with this idea, I want you to imagine all the loot, all the unlocks, and all the currency you've been amassing. Well, basically, it gets reset to 0, and now there's new stuff for you to go and chase with a whole new character, okay? This is basically how it works with seasonal characters in Diablo, right? You make a seasonal character with the understanding that you're going to grind like crazy, and then everything's going to be basically done at the end of that season. Well, Arc Raiders may have the solution for how to best handle this. Insider Gaming reported the following. In a lengthy blog post by Arc Raiders design director Virgil, it was revealed how the game will handle progression wipes. The developers had already stated that they do not intend to do mandatory wipes, and they have stuck to their word. So listen, Embark Studios, they have been very excellent in engaging with the community. I think that's one of the reasons the game is sitting in such a great spot. They've been very active and they have been listening. They've even sort of leaned into memes, right? When their game name, Arc Raiders, was censored in a recent Call of Duty Black Ops 7 stream, they kind of leaned into it. It was rather funny. Now, the report continues here. It says they understand the benefits of global wipes as they provide experienced players with a fresh game. However, it doesn't cater to players who don't have as much time to play. Now, listen, this is not the only issue with mandatory wipes, but this is certainly a big one. Okay, we've seen this issue crop up quite a bit in recent movements to allowing battle passes to be completed over time. Like if you're like, hey, I didn't get to finish my battle pass, what am I going to do? Well, a lot of companies are now saying, oh yeah, your battle passes can be completed anytime. The irony is giving people this level of freedom, they might be spending more money. They're not feeling that wrong version of FOMO, which is fear of missing out. Many might feel like, well, I'm not going to buy this thing because I might not have enough time to finish it, and giving people more freedom with things like this, maybe that's emboldening more people to spend money. So how is this going to work in Arc Raiders? This is what they say in the article. The game features projects that players can access at level 20. The first major project in this section is the Expedition Project, and once players complete it, they can reset their character. After completing a reset, players can do it again by completing another one of these projects. Expedition Project will operate on a roughly 8-week cycle, during which players can make progress towards that project. Okay, so what happens at the end of 8 weeks, right? Let's say you run out of time and you didn't complete it. Okay, this is what they say in the article. Once the 8 weeks are complete, players will have the option to finalize their project for an additional week. If they have fulfilled all the project's requirements, they can finalize it. If the player's project is not ready during this window, they'll do it again. Well, let's say that you choose to wipe. What do you lose? This is what they say. Anything that's related to the character's progress will be wiped, including levels, skills, items, inventory, workshop, crafting capabilities, etc. Any cosmetics earned or purchased, achievements, rankings, etc. will be retained. Anything rooted solely in the meta game or involving real money will be preserved, they said. After completing their Expedition Project, players will be able to skip most of the onboarding and tutorial steps, which include unlocking certain features, maps, etc. Okay, this begs the question. Why would I do this? Why would I do this? Why would I voluntarily reset all of my things? Well, they tell you. Here's the quote. Players who complete Expedition projects in Arc Raiders will receive some benefits and rewards. These are yet to be finalized, but they are the type of rewards players can expect. These are the type of rewards players can expect. Permanent account unlocks for each completed expedition, unique cosmetic rewards for completed expeditions, account buffs that are applied for the duration of the following expedition cycle, and sequential completions of the expedition project increase the magnitude of these buffs up to a limit. So there you have it. You got reasons to wipe, reasons to wait if you want, and I think this is a pretty measured approach to an honestly difficult problem. How do you promote ongoing engagement and re-engagement with the game like Arc Raiders without something to chase and to grind for? And how do you get folks to chase and grind the new thing if they kind of already have everything, if they're kind of already maxed out, if they're topped out, if they're really wealthy? It's the age-old problem of live service games. You got to get people to chase this thing. Once they have that thing, well, then the question becomes, well, now what? Do it again? Do I add something new? Well, if you add something new, is it going to be better than what I already have? There has to be some semblance of reset, or you just end up with power creep or just an endless supply of things. I mean, I actually think Helldivers 2 needs to consider their own approach to this. New or returning players are faced with a waterfall of their, basically what are their battle passes in the game. That is a ridiculous thing to comb through. It's very, very daunting. It's honestly discouraging from engaging with the game because it's too much. It's what I would describe as maybe too much of a good thing, right? Their war bonds are their battle passes, and I mean, man, do they stack up when you haven't been playing in a while. Arc Raiders seems to understand this, but they're going to give you the option on how to approach it. And I, for one, think it's a smart move. What do you think? There we go. Well, thankfully, the audio didn't mess up that time. We've been doing this for a while, so I don't know what the heck happened. We've been doing the on-the-fly recording thing for a while, and I'm really a little baffled as to why that happened, but it has seemingly stopped. Helldivers is a co-op PvE extraction shooter. You drop in, complete missions, and extract, hence extraction game. Oh, are people calling Helldivers an extraction game? No wipes is a big yikes for an extraction. I mean, this is going to have wipes. Yeah, I would argue that Helldivers is not really an extraction shooter. Like, it is, but it isn't. The Shure SM7B is S tier. Well, thank you. It is, and it isn't. Like, I would say it's an arcade-ish extraction shooter. It's more of like an arcade extraction where, like, yeah, you're extracting, but, like, you don't have, like, a meta of things that you're extracting with that you can then therefore lose and have to re-get. Does that make sense? It's not like if you have a bad run in Helldivers, you're like, oh, shoot, I lost my stuff. I got to go get my stuff again. Can you progress in shape, form, or fashion in Helldivers without extracting successfully? Yeah. Yeah, even if you don't extract, you're still progressing to a certain degree. Can you upgrade anything without the extracted mats? No. Yes, you can. No, you cannot? Yes, you can. What do you mean? When you extract, you get the materials for the ship, but your character can still progress. You can still get the currency and the metals to upgrade your character. You can't upgrade the ship if you don't extract. But it's not an extraction shooter. Like, I don't think anybody would classify. You can progress the war bonds even if you don't successfully extract. The only thing you can't do is upgrade the stuff in the ship. So yes, there is a branch of progression that doesn't work if you never successfully extract. You can buy goofball stuff. How are weapons and armor goofball stuff? What are you talking about? That's literally where all the weapons are. You don't unlock anything without extracting? Yes, you do. What are you talking about? You guys are being too rigid on this. If you want to make your case, at least represent the game accurately. You're representing some figment. That's not how Helldivers works. If you don't successfully extract, you can still unlock weapons and new armor and new stuff from the war bonds. They have like stuff in there like perks and stuff that you can unlock, and you don't need to extract to get those things. I think classifying Helldivers as an extraction shooter is just... I just don't think it fits into the genre whatsoever. Because an extraction shooter, the idea is if you don't get out, you lose stuff. You're not going to come back next time with the same stuff, like weapons, like armor perks and stuff. Like, look at the way that Arc Raiders works. When I died, I lost my stuff. Now I got to get more stuff. When you die in Helldivers and don't extract, like, you still have your guns, you still have your armor. The only thing you lost is any mats you found on that specific run. If I go into a game of Arc Raiders and I don't really find anything, but I die and I don't extract, I lose the stuff I went in with. That's an entirely different meta of extraction. You're like, that's a massive amount of risk that you're taking. When I go into Helldivers 2 and I don't find any mats and I die and don't extract, I didn't lose anything. Nothing happened. I got no skin in the game. Like, I basically, again, the only thing you can lose in Helldivers is any match you found on that particular run. If you get kicked or disconnected or leave a mission early, you only get to keep the super credits if you find them some beforehand. If you play Helldivers 2 and never extract, you're going to be severely behind the rest of the player base. Right, And that's obviously an extreme because there's difficulty settings in Helldivers. This is another thing that extraction shooters don't really typically have. You can grind the lower levels of Helldivers and you're almost guaranteed to extract because there's such a small amount of enemies. Like, it would be very unusual for somebody to never extract in that game, right? In a game like Arc Raiders or Tarkov, there is no difficulty setting. You're just in there. And you go in with stuff that you can lose. It's not just, I'm going to go in, I hope to find some materials to get out with. If I don't extract, then I didn't get the materials. But I still got stuff. You still get super credits. You still get medals if you complete some of the missions. So it's like, that's not the way extraction shooters work. I can play Helldivers 2 and never extract, and as long as my team does, I can progress just as well as they do. Extraction's not a requirement. Just as the Mario Kart's not a racer or Super Smash Brothers isn't a fighter convo, it's exhausting. Like, what's the point? I think it's helpful to look at extraction shooters and see what they commonly deliver and look at Helldivers and say, it doesn't really deliver that experience. You would call it extraction light or something. It's like, I mean, yeah, it has those elements, but you wouldn't say, oh, you like if you went up to somebody and you were like, oh, you like extraction shooters? Oh, yeah, you'd love Helldivers too. They'd be like, what the frick are you talking about? They'd be like, what? They're like, that's not even the same type of game at all. You know what I mean? I think that's the rub. You could call it extraction light. I think that's fine. I usually don't get gatekeepy and pedantic about this because I think sometimes people go a little too hard in the paint on this topic. I think they do. I do think, though, that in this case, there's a pretty clear identity of what extraction shooters are. You know, Hunt Showdown, Tarkov, DMZ, and Call of Duty, and Marathon, and Arc Raiders. And I do not think Helldivers fits in there. It's like one of these things is not like the other. It just doesn't fit. It's like, yeah, I don't think that you would want to call it that. Yeah, the RPG thing is frustrating because I think when you attach RPG to something else, it changes the use. So when you say action RPG, JRPG, CRPG, right? I think what you're doing is you're communicating something that everybody understands. Like when somebody says, oh yeah, that's an action RPG. Yeah, it's open world action adventure RPG. If somebody says that, you're not confused. You're not like, oh, it's like Baldur's Gate? Do you know what I mean? Like, the purpose of communication is to convey an idea to another person and have understanding. So if somebody says, oh, that game over there is an open world action adventure RPG, you're like, oh, I know what to expect. Probably a pretty reasonable to minimal skill tree, some sort of leveling mechanic, and some sort of loot table, probably maybe with like tiers of loot, you know. But you know that it's not going to be like Baldur's Gate. Like, you know there's a distinct difference between. Even when somebody says, yeah, you know, Diablo's top-down action RPG. Even that game, you know that you're not going to be playing Diablo and having a Baldur's Gate 3 experience. So I feel like RPG is different because RPG is normally not used in a vacuum. It's usually attached to something else. CRPG, JRPG, action adventure RPG, action RPG. Like, it's literally just used as like a, yeah, there's a skill tree and a loot table here. You level, loot gets better. You level, skill tree gets better. It's got those RPG elements in it, so we're going to call it an action RPG. We're going to call it an action adventure RPG, right? Like, it's used in that way. I think the difficulty with extraction shooter is that's all it is. It's like there's nothing else to say. You're just like, yeah, it's an extraction shooter. So when you're like, oh yeah, Helldivers 2 is an extraction shooter, well, what are people going to do? They're going to immediately think of the very limited number of extraction shooters out there. They're going to think of Tarkov, Hunt, Arc Raiders, and they're going to be like, huh? Like, the RPG conversation's been going on for, 15 years, and it's really come the distance where you have like MMORPGs, action RPGs. What do they call what did Luke Smith call Destiny? And he called it an action MMO. You know what I mean? It's like when he said that, nobody was like, no, hang on a minute. That's not actually true. It's not an MMO. It's like, well, no. What he's saying is it's got elements of both. I think Helldiver's use of extraction is quite smart in using extraction, but not being an extraction shooter, not bagging on the game. Just silly to not include the primary goal of the game. I mean, I think one of the things that makes Helldivers 2 so unique is that you can't really find another game like it right now. That's one of the reasons why I think it did so well. Like when you find a game, this is why I think people got really frustrated with Anthem. This is a complete side tangent. But I think one of the reasons people got upset with Anthem is because it was fun and you couldn't find that experience somewhere else. It wasn't like, well, that game, that game kind of went belly up, no big deal. Like when these battle royales came out and failed, nobody was like, oh, frick. It was like, well, we'll just go play Fortnite or Apex or Warzone. Like when New World failed as an MMO, people were like, well, we'll just go and play FF14, or we'll go back to WoW, or we'll go back to RuneScape. You see what I'm saying? Like, I think one of the reasons that Expedition 33 one of the reasons that Anthem frustrated people is it was like, I really can't go anywhere else and have this experience. You guys had so much potential here, man. You jacked this up. This is really frustrating. On the other side of that coin, I think when you play Helldivers, you're like, the reason they're getting such good re-engagement over the long haul is because, like, you can't really go anywhere else and have that experience. You can't. I love Anthem sucks it failed. Should have had a campaign. Huh? It did have a campaign. The campaign was fine. The campaign was serviceable. The problem with Anthem wasn't the lack of a campaign. The campaign was actually not too bad. It wasn't too shabby. They didn't have an ongoing content model. They didn't even understand their own dadgum loot table. They had contradictory perks landing on weapons. You'd get a sniper with shotgun perks on it. Like their loot table didn't even make any sense. It was nonsensical. It sadly, it wasn't the lack of a campaign. The campaign was fine. Like, it wasn't amazing. Nobody was writing, diatribes about the excellence of the Anthem campaign, but the campaign wasn't the problem. That was the least of their worries. Like, if that's all they had to worry about, they could have just added more story. They could have just added more stuff. Yeah, they had no end game. Their end game was non-existent. They just started adding activities. It's like, this isn't going to save your game. I know I'm in the minority, but I drastically dislike Helldivers 2. Only game I try to get a refund on Steam for. I don't think that's surprising. That's not surprising. Some of the most popular games I don't even touch. Some of the most popular games in the world are MMOs, fighting games, racing games. I don't touch those games. I don't do anything with those games. If it doesn't get you, it doesn't get you. If it doesn't hook you, it doesn't hook you. That's just the way of the road. Face the wall, treason. Yeah, sports games. Sports games are some of the most popular, most engaged with titles in the world, and I don't touch them. I'm like, I feel nothing for them when I look at them. I'm like, okay. No thanks. You got bored of Helldivers? I hit 80 hours, and I literally was like, I've had my fill. This was a great time. Thank you for the experience. And then I took a break. And when I came back to it, I was just kind of like, maybe a little been there, done that. It was like, yeah, I've kind of done this. I've kind of experienced this. I liked it. I had a good time with it. But, Blows my mind people buy Madden every year. I mean, how many of you in here have not really touched or played Call of Duty in a really long time and you're shocked that people do that every year? I mean, that's just the nature of gaming. You know, the nature of gaming is that there are pockets of people that are just like, this is my thing. This is where I hang out. This is what I do. And you're like, yeah, I don't have any freaking interest in that at all. You know? That's how you felt about The Division. Sad Lono's not into fighting games with all the stuff going on in the genre right now. Yeah, I just think with gaming especially, you have like natural affinities. Like you kind of fold into a game your affinity for something, which is like your love for it, and your ability. They're usually very much, it's like they're the dance partners on the floor. You can't really tell who's leading. They're so interwoven. Like, I just wasn't naturally good at fighting games, so then my enjoyment of them wasn't very high. I wasn't like, oh, I really like Street Fighter and Killer Instinct. Like, there was a time where I kind of did, and I was trying to get good, and I just figured out I'm just not good at these games. I'd practice and practice and practice with Jago, and then I'd go up against my brother or his friends, and I'd get annihilated. And I was like, man, I don't really like this. And then GoldenEye happened, and I was like, ooh, I like this. And I was good at GoldenEye. And then I played Quake 2. And then I played Quake 3. And then I played Unreal Tournament. I was like, man, shooters are my jam. And then I got into Call of Duty. So, like, your ability in a game, if you have like a natural ability for it, that's going to play into your affinity for it as well. I think the two are very interrelated. So like when you pick up a game, like Tecmo Super Bowl is the first sports game I ever played. And we also had Ken Griffey Baseball on Super Nintendo, which that was actually pretty fun. But Tecmo Super Bowl, I would just get my butt kicked by my older brother and my dad. And it was like, that's going to naturally hurt your enjoyment. You're just going to like, yeah, I don't like this. I just lose all the time. You know? There was no get good back then. You would just be like, yeah, my turn's up. Somebody else play. Like, that was just kind of it. It wasn't like, let me practice on the weekend. It was like, this is our one day to play. I just lost for like the 9th time in a row. I'm good. I'm going to go play, you know, kickball in the backyard, or, you know, go try to catch frogs in the creek, or, you know, do something. There wasn't a mentality of like, I'm going to get good at Tecmo Super Bowl. You know what I mean? I beat my brother once in Virtual Fighter. He threw a massive hissy fit. Oh, I bet. Loved Ken Griffey Baseball. That was a really, really good baseball game. Yeah. Come on! Peanuts! Like the little voices in the background. We thought they were so funny. You know? Come on! For you, it was Joe Montana football. I love fighting games because Tekken 3 was my first PlayStation game. I was fighting my cousins if I lost in Tecmo. Yeah, we didn't ever come to blows over video games. The first time I ever rage quit was, I think it was Super Metroid. I died at Mother Brain. I was so angry. I was like 8 years old. I lost it. I completely had a meltdown because it was so hard to get there. I wish game requests were still a thing. How much do I need to pay? I mean, it's got a 68%, so that's probably not worth our time, Sven. They got the classic, what is this, Aladdin and the Lion King? Yeah. I mean, these would be probably pretty rage-inducing. They're hard games, man. Games back then are tough. I was too busy playing Parappa the Rapper. FPS would have a hard time winning Game of the Year these days. Yeah, somebody left a comment and they said, like, they were like, I was told a racing game could never win Game of the Year. And I don't know if they were quoting me. It's like, I don't think I've ever said that they can't. They traditionally don't. Like, they just traditionally don't win Game of the Year. They usually don't get enough traction when it comes time to the votes. Oh, I do have chapstick down here. It's like that time of year, man. Drives me nuts. Do you remember a game called Flashback on the Mega Drive? I don't. People really don't realize how curated most major games are to have smooth increases in difficulty for maximum enjoyment. That didn't exist back in the 80s. No, it was just like, this game is brutal, tough, and you're going to hate every minute of it. Like, good luck, you know? You think extraction shooters will be the new Battle Royale? No. No, I don't think extraction shooters will ever have the potential to be mainstream the way Battle Royale became mainstream. I don't think so. Yeah. It's one of those scenarios where I just think it's too niche. It's too niche and it's too punishing. I just don't think it'll ever have the traction that's needed. We were kids, it was either Kung Fu or Battletoads. Have a blast or get blasted. No common medium. Yeah. Mario Kart and GoldenEye sort of became the staples in our home. Like, that's all. That was it for us. So. Mm-hmm. Say niche one more time. Who's saying niche? Who are you talking to? Next gen's gonna be like the PS3 and the 360 where there's a year between the releases. I think so. Yes, I think so. I don't think they're going to land at the same time. Yeah. I'm basing that off of both my gut, but also just everything that we're hearing. I prefer niche. Oh, is somebody really getting, like, persnickety about the pronunciation of that word of all words? There's, like, 2 pronunciations. Everybody knows this. Today was my last day at Rare. Who's this that's leaving Rare? Greg Males? Video game designer? What's his history with Rare? You got the guy from Halo and now him? Games seem interesting. I had like 200 games on Steam and nothing to play. Maybe I'm fatigued. I don't know. Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes you need something to spark it. You need a game to kind of like snap you out of it. I've been there. I'm like, I don't want to play anything. Sometimes if I'm in a gap between 2 big games, I definitely feel that. It looks like Greg Males is leaving Rare. He worked on Battletoads? How long was he there? Oh my gosh. He's been at Rare for 36 years. Homie was there testing games in the late 80s, early 90s. 90s into the 2000s, he had various design roles. 2000s to the present, he's had various design roles. That homie's been there for 36 years. Dadgum. That is a long friggin' time. I'm 43. He's almost worked at Rare as long as I've been alive. That's nuts. The train is fully off the rails, so we're going green room. This is a great reason to be a patron of the channel. If you're at Member Plus or above, you can come with us. Your day does not end. Jack Garland hits a 5-bomb. Yeah, we are. That is also a unique development. We missed a day last week, and we were in better shape. We missed a whole Tuesday. We're going into Wednesday. We don't even have 100 yet. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Thank you, Jack Garland, for bumping the line, getting us a little bit closer to the first 100 of the week. I'm going to give you guys a link, and we're going to go to the green room. Thank you so much for being a patron of the channel. If you're watching this later and you are a VIP or a Member Plus, thank you so much for doing this. If you're watching this later and you're not one of those tiers of support, please consider doing that. That is how I do this full time. Membership has been in a not great spot this year because of some developments from the platform. We're trying to fix that. You can help us with that by clicking join and picking Member Plus. So thank you to everybody who has been doing that, and thank you to everybody who has been gifting as well. I'm going to end the previous stream and bring folks over with Redirect. If you can't come with us, check out my latest video on Saros. That video could use a little bit of a bump, and if you like my content and you want to see that video, that one is there and available on the channel right now. Okay, good show.